The night was silent in the countryside. The man sat inside his small wooden house, drinking tea and reading an old book. Outside, the cool wind moved through the trees, and the only sound was the soft rustle of leaves. His loyal dog Max lay near the door, calm and relaxed. For many years life had been simple for the man. Quiet days, quiet nights, and no surprises. But that night everything changed. Suddenly Max jumped to his feet and barked loudly. His deep growl echoed through the house. The man looked up, surprised. Max was never this restless unless something was wrong. The dog scratched the door, barking again, louder this time. "What is it, boy?" the man asked, standing up. He opened the door carefully. Cold air rushed in, and his eyes adjusted to the darkness outside. At first he saw nothing. The fields were empty, the road was silent, and the stars above shone quietly. But Max did not calm down. Instead, he ran a few steps out, barking at the shadows. Then the man saw it. A small figure stood near the edge of the yard. She was thin, trembling, and dressed in strange, torn clothes. Her eyes reflected the moonlight with an unusual glow. For a moment, the man thought his mind was playing tricks on him. The figure looked like a young girl, but not completely human. Her skin had a faint bluish shade, and strange faint marks ran across her arms, glowing softly like hidden symbols. Her hair was tangled, messy, and streaked with silver. She looked weak, as if she had not eaten for days. The man froze. His first thought was to step back, to close the door, to stay safe. But then the girl moved. She stumbled forward, almost falling, and Max ran to her, sniffing. The dog's barking stopped. Instead, he wagged his tail and stood beside her as if protecting her. The man's heart beat faster. Who was this child? Where had she come from? "Hello?" he said softly, unsure if she could understand. The girl lifted her head slowly. Her glowing eyes met his. She looked scared to death. For a long second, she said nothing. Then in a trembling, broken voice, she whispered a single word. "Dad?" The man's breath caught in his chest. He stepped closer, shocked. "What did you say?" The girl wobbled, her body weak, her face pale. She looked at him as if searching for safety, as if her entire life depended on his answer. Max barked once, not in anger, but as if asking the man to help her. The man carefully approached, his boots crunching on the ground. The girl stepped back, frightened, but she did not run. Her small hands shook and her lips trembled. "Who are you?" he asked gently. "Where are your parents?" Her eyes filled with tears. She shook her head, then whispered again, "Dad." The word stabbed deep into his heart. She was lost, confused, and clearly not from this world. But why was she calling him that? The man reached out his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. The girl stared at his hand, then at Max, who stood calmly beside her. The dog licked her hand gently, and she gave a weak smile, the first sign of peace on her tired face. "Come inside," the man said softly. "It's too cold out here." For a moment she hesitated. Her eyes darted to the dark trees behind her, as if something or someone might still be chasing her. Then, shivering, she took one weak step toward him. The man guided her into the house. She walked slowly, as if each step was painful. Once inside, she looked around with wide, fearful eyes, as though the walls themselves might harm her. The man closed the door, keeping out the cold night. He gave her a blanket and set her on a chair near the fire. She pulled the blanket tightly around herself, still shivering. Her breathing was heavy, and her small hands clutched the blanket as if it was her last protection. The man placed a cup of warm water in front of her. She stared at it suspiciously, but then took a small sip. "What happened to you?" he asked, his voice calm. The girl opened her mouth, but no words came. Instead, she shook her head again and again as tears slid down her cheeks. The man's heart softened. She was not just lost, she was broken. Whoever she was, whatever had happened to her, she was terrified. Max rested his head on her lap, and she placed a trembling hand on his fur. Slowly, her breathing calmed, as if the dog's presence gave her courage. The man sat across from her, watching silently. The glowing marks on her skin flickered faintly like fading lights. She was not an ordinary child. She was something else, something unknown. But one thing was clear. She was alone. She was scared. And she had come to his door as if fate itself had led her there. The girl looked up at him again, eyes wet with tears. This time she whispered the word more clearly, "Dad." The man did not know why she said it or what it truly meant. But as he looked at her, wrapped in his blanket, holding onto his dog, something inside him stirred. For years he had lived in silence and loneliness. Now, in one single night, his quiet life had been shattered. by a lost alien girl who saw him not as a stranger, but as a father, and in that moment he could not deny it. The strange arrival had changed everything. The girl sat quietly in the chair, wrapped in the man's blanket. Her small frame almost disappeared under the thick cloth. The fire crackled softly in the corner, sending warm light across the room. The man sat opposite her, watching carefully, while Max the dog stayed close to her feet. She did not speak. She only held the blanket tightly and stared at the flames, as if she had never seen fire before. Her glowing eyes flickered like frightened stars. The man leaned forward. "Are you hungry?" he asked. The girl looked at him but said nothing. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came. Instead, she lowered her eyes, clutching the blanket harder. The man sighed and stood. He walked to the small kitchen and brought a piece of bread and some warm soup. He placed it gently on the table. "It's safe," he said. For a moment, she did not move. Her shoulders shook and her breathing quickened. She looked at him with fear, as if he might trick her. Then she glanced at Max, who wagged his tail and sniffed the food. Only then did she slowly reach out, her thin fingers trembling. She took the bread, smelled it, and then ate in small bites as if every piece might vanish. The soup followed, hesitant sips that soon turned into faster gulps. The man could see it clearly. She had been starving. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and whispered softly, "Thank you." The man froze. Her voice was broken, her words slow, but he understood them. She could speak his language, at least a little. "You're welcome," he said kindly. "Can you tell me your name?" The girl shook her head quickly. Her eyes filled with fear again. She pressed herself against the chair, as if the question itself hurt her. "It's all right," he said quickly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "You don't have to say anything." For a moment, silence filled the room again. Only the fire and the soft breath of the dog could be heard. Then the girl whispered a few words, broken and uncertain. "No name. No family, what, no home?" Her voice cracked on the last word. Tears filled her eyes and she buried her face in the blanket. The man felt his chest tighten. This child, alien or not, was suffering. She was not only lost but also broken inside. Max placed his head gently on her lap. The girl's small hand reached out, stroking the dog's fur. A weak smile touched her lips, but it was gone in seconds. The man spoke softly. "You don't have to be afraid here. No one will hurt you." Her eyes widened suddenly. She shook her head, panic flashing in her face. "No, they hurt. They always hurt. They come, they take, they—" Her words broke into sobs. She covered her ears as if remembering terrible screams. The man moved closer, his voice calm. "Hey, you're safe here." "Nobody will come. Not while I'm here." But her eyes darted to the window. The dark night outside seemed to scare her more than anything. She pointed with a shaking finger. "They are out there. Always watching. Always hunting." The man turned his head toward the window but saw nothing. Still, her fear was real. She trembled, her body shaking violently. To calm her, he pulled another blanket and draped it around her shoulders. He lit a small lantern, filling the room with more light as if to chase away the shadows. Slowly, she relaxed again. Her breaths came slower, but the fear in her eyes never fully left. The man asked gently, "Why did you call me Dad?" The girl froze. She looked at him, her lips trembling. She whispered, "Because you did not shout. You did not strike. You gave food. A dad does that." The words pierced deep into the man's heart. She had known only cruelty, only pain, so kindness itself felt like family to her. The man swallowed hard. "Then, if you want, you can call me Dad." Her eyes widened with surprise. Then slowly, for the first time, she smiled. Weak, small, but real. "Dad," she whispered again, this time with a little more strength. At that moment, the man realized something. This child had been through horrors he could not imagine. She had been treated like a stranger, like nothing. And now she was sitting in his home, calling him by a word he had not heard in years. But even as warmth filled the room, the man noticed something strange. The faint glowing marks on her arms grew brighter, pulsing softly as if reacting to her emotions. He frowned. "What are those?" he whispered to himself. The girl quickly pulled the blanket tighter, hiding her arms. Her eyes filled with fear again. She shook her head, refusing to answer. The man decided not to push her. For now, she needed safety more than questions. Outside, the wind howled. Somewhere deep in the forest, an unnatural sound echoed. A sharp hum, low but menacing. Max's ears perked up and he growled softly. The man's heart sank. He had heard nothing like it before. But the girl's face told him the truth. She knew the sound. She knew who it belonged to. She clung to the blanket, whispering in terror. "They are close." The man's eyes narrowed. Whoever they were, he understood one thing. This girl was not safe. And now neither was he. Morning sunlight crept through the cracks of the wooden house. The man woke up early as always, but today felt different. He was not alone anymore. In the small room beside his, the strange girl slept under heavy blankets, curled up tightly as if afraid the warmth would vanish. Max, the dog, was lying beside her bed like a loyal guard. Every now and then he wagged his tail when she stirred, as though he already accepted her as part of the family. The man stood by the doorway, watching. She looked peaceful while sleeping, but her face still carried shadows of pain. Her hands clutched the blanket even in her dreams, and once in a while, she whispered strange broken words he could not understand. After some time, she opened her eyes. The glowing shade in them returned, and the moment she saw the man, she flinched slightly, pulling the blanket closer. "It's all right," he said softly, keeping his voice calm. "You're safe." She stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked at Max, who wagged his tail and licked her hand. That simple action seemed to give her courage. The man placed a plate of bread, eggs, and warm milk on the table. "Eat," he said. At first she hesitated again. Then slowly she came forward, her small feet dragging across the wooden floor. She sat on the chair and began to eat quietly. Unlike last night, she took slower bites, as if she was beginning to trust that the food would not be taken away. "Good," the man said. Almost smiling, her eyes flickered toward him. "Cautious but curious. What should I call you?" he asked. She lowered her head. "No name." "You must have a name," he said gently. "Everyone has one." But she only shook her head again, hiding her face. The man decided not to press further. Instead, he asked, "Do you like dogs?" She looked at Max, who rested his chin on her lap. Slowly she smiled, just a tiny curve of her lips. She stroked his head softly. "Yes," she whispered. "Friend?" The man noticed the glow in her eyes softened when she touched Max. It was the first pure smile she had shown. That small bond between child and dog was the first true connection she had made in his home. After breakfast, the man went outside to chop wood. He expected her to stay inside, but to his surprise, she followed him, standing quietly near the door. She watched with wide eyes as the axe split logs with sharp cracks. "Have you never seen this before?" he asked, wiping his forehead. She shook her head slowly. Then she whispered, "You make fire." Her words were broken but clear enough. "Yes," he said. "Fire keeps us warm." She watched carefully, almost studying every move. It was as though she was learning something new, something she had never been taught. Later, when the man returned inside, he found her sitting near the fireplace, staring into the flames with wonder in her eyes. She held her hands out toward the heat, her face calm for once. He sat beside her quietly. "Do you like it?" "Yes," she whispered. Then, after a pause, she added, "Safe." The man felt a strange warmth in his chest. She was beginning to see his home not as a prison, but as a safe place. That evening, as the sky turned red with sunset, the girl finally spoke more. "They chased me," she whispered, her voice trembling. The man turned to her, listening carefully. "They take children. Not safe. I run, I hide, but they find again." She gripped the blanket tightly, her glowing marks pulsing faintly as she spoke. "Always hunting. Always cruel." The man frowned. "Who are they?" She shook her head. "Bad ones. Dark ones, not family." Her voice cracked and she buried her face in Max's fur. The man gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now. I won't let anyone hurt you." She looked up at him, eyes wide. Then, almost in disbelief, she whispered the word again. "Dad." This time she said it not with fear, but with hope. The man's heart tightened. He had not been called that word for many years, not since he had lost his own family long ago. But hearing it now from this lost alien girl felt like a piece of himself had returned. He nodded slowly. "Yes, if you want, I can be that." Her eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. She reached out her small hand and placed it gently over his. For the first time, it was not only fear in her touch. It was trust. That night before sleeping, the girl sat near the window watching the stars. She pointed at one glowing dot in the sky. Home. Far away, she whispered. The man stood beside her. Do you want to go back? She was silent for a long moment. Then she shook her head. No, home here now. With Dad, with Max. The man said nothing. His heart was heavy with questions, but her words were enough. As the night deepened, a strange sound echoed faintly from the forest, the same low hum he had heard before. The girl's face paled instantly. She grabbed his arm tightly, whispering, They... coming. The man looked out into the darkness. He could not see them, but he knew danger was closer than ever, and now it was no longer only his fight. He had something to protect, a scared stranger who was slowly becoming his daughter. The night had fallen heavy and dark over the countryside. The man sat by the fire, sharpening his old hunting knife while the girl rested quietly near Max, but her eyes never closed fully. Every few minutes she would look toward the window, her small body tense as if the darkness itself was alive. The man noticed it. You're safe here, he said softly. But the girl shook her head. Her glowing eyes shimmered with fear. Not safe, they... Follow, the man frowned. He had heard the strange sound in the forest before, that humming noise that did not belong to any bird or machine he knew, and though he had dismissed many things in life, he could not dismiss her fear. Outside, the wind grew colder. The trees creaked as though whispering secrets. Then Max's ears perked up and he growled low, staring toward the door. The man froze. He had lived in these woods for years. He knew the sounds of owls, wolves, and foxes. But this sound, the low hum growing faintly louder, was not from Earth's creatures. The girl clutched his sleeve tightly. They are here, she whispered. The man stood, gripping the knife. He moved to the door and opened it slowly. The woods were dark, but something unnatural glowed between the trees. Strange lights, small, flickering, almost like blue fireflies, moved in patterns. But they were not fireflies. They moved too controlled, too sharp, as if they were searching. Max barked furiously, pulling against the man's leg. Quiet, the man whispered. Pulling the dog back, then he heard it, faint footsteps, heavier than any animal, moving through the leaves. The figures were still hidden, but he knew someone or something was out there. He closed the door quickly, locking it. His heart pounded, but his voice remained calm. Stay near the fire, he told the girl. She trembled, hugging the blanket close. Her glowing marks pulsed brighter now, reacting to whatever was outside. Why are they after you? He asked firmly. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Because I escaped. Her words were broken but full of meaning. They keep children, not family, not love. Only chains. I run. They want me back. Her small hands shook violently. If they find... They take me forever. The man clenched his fists. He looked into her eyes and saw not just fear, but pain of being treated like less than alive. Not while I breathe, he muttered. He began to move quickly around the room, pulling down old wooden boards, setting them against the windows. He stoked the fire higher, knowing light was both safety and a warning. The girl watched him, her fear mixing with a strange hope. But then, a knock echoed on the wall. Not on the door, on the side of the house, slow, heavy, deliberate, knock, knock, knock. The girl screamed and covered her ears. Max barked like thunder, throwing himself against the door. The man held his knife tightly, his eyes narrowed. Stay behind me, he said. The knocking stopped. Silence returned, but it was a silence filled with threat. The man peered through a small crack in the window. For a moment he saw it. A tall, dark figure standing among the trees, its eyes glowing faintly red. Another figure stood beside it. Then another. They weren't animals. They weren't men. They were hunters, predators from somewhere else. The girl whispered, her voice breaking. They call me property. I am not property. I want to live. Her words struck like a blade to the man's heart. He turned to her, his voice firm, almost a growl. You are not property, not here. You are free. She looked at him with wide eyes, as if no one had ever said those words to her. Outside, the hum grew louder. Strange lights circled the house now. The hunters were moving closer. The man blew out the lanterns, leaving only the firelight inside. He crouched near the girl. Listen. Whatever happens, stay near Max. He will protect you. The girl clutched the dog's fur, nodding quickly, though her tears kept falling. Then came the sound again. Footsteps, right outside the door. The wooden floor shook lightly under the weight. The man's hand tightened around the knife. He breathed slowly, every muscle ready. For a long moment, silence. Then from outside, a voice, cold, mechanical, filled with authority. "Return the child. She does not belong to you." The man's heart hammered. He had not expected them to speak his language. The girl buried her face in Max's fur, shaking violently. The man stood tall, his shadow cast by the fire. He shouted back, "She belongs to no one." Silence again. Then laughter, low and chilling. The voice replied, "Then you will suffer with her." The glow outside grew brighter, shadows moving across the walls. Max barked with fury, his teeth bared. The girl sobbed quietly, whispering, "Dad, don't let them take me." The man looked at her, then at the door where danger waited. His hand gripped the knife tighter. He had lived alone for years, keeping away from the world. But now he realized his life had changed. He was no longer just a man with a dog in a quiet house. He was something else. He was a father protecting his child. And as the shadows closed in, he swore silently. He would fight until his last breath to keep her safe. The night pressed heavy against the wooden house. Outside, the strange lights moved like silent hunters circling slowly. The air was thick with a low humming sound, deep and unnatural. Inside, the man stood tall near the door, his hunting knife gleaming in the firelight. Max growled, his teeth flashing, ready to defend. The girl sat behind them, clutching the blanket and trembling. Her glowing marks pulsed faster, almost as if her body could sense the danger closing in. She whispered, "They will take me." "They always take. No escape." The man looked at her firmly. "Not this time. Not while I live." The girl's wide eyes filled with tears. She had never heard words like that before. Another knock came, this time harder, shaking the door on its hinges. The voice outside returned, cold and demanding, "Return the child. She does not belong to you." The man's heart raced. He could open the door, step aside, and the danger would vanish from his life. He could hand over the girl, return to his quiet, lonely days. That would be the safe choice, the easy choice. But as he looked at her, small, broken, calling him Dad with hope in her voice, he knew he could never do that. The easy choice was no longer his choice. He knelt in front of her. "Listen to me," he said softly. "You are not property. You are not theirs. You are a child. And from tonight, you are my child," the girl gasped, her lips trembling. "Your child?" "Yes," he said. "Mine to protect. Mine to keep safe. That's a father's promise." Her tears rolled freely. But this time they were not only from fear. They were from something she had never felt before. Love. Max barked sharply, pulling their attention back to the door. Shadows moved against the cracks of the window. The hunters were circling closer. The man stood, determination hard in his eyes. "Stay here. Don't move. Trust me." But the girl shook her head wildly. "They are too strong. You will die. They always win." He gave a small, tired smile. "Maybe they always won before, but they've never faced me." He picked up an old hunting rifle from above the fireplace. The gun was old, scratched, but still strong. He loaded it slowly, the sound of metal echoing in the silence. The girl clutched Max tightly. "Dad," she whispered, her voice breaking. The man glanced back at her. For the first time in many years, his eyes softened with something more than survival. They softened with love. Then the door shook violently. A deep crack spread through the wood. The hunters were done waiting. The man raised the rifle, his body steady. His life had always been quiet, but tonight he had a purpose, a reason to fight. The door burst open with a deafening crash. Dark figures stepped inside, tall and armored, their eyes glowing red. They carried strange weapons that buzzed with deadly light. Max lunged forward, barking with all his strength. The girl screamed, covering her ears. The man fired. The rifle cracked, the sound thunderous in the small house. One figure stumbled back, sparks flying from its armor. The others hissed in strange, guttural voices. They moved fast, raising their weapons. The man shouted, "Get back!" and fired again. Wood splintered, smoke filled the air, but he did not stop. One hunter fell, but two pushed forward. A glowing blade sliced across the table, sending food and firewood crashing to the ground. The girl's marks burned brighter than ever, her body shaking with strange energy. She cried out, "Dad!" The man grabbed a lantern and hurled it against the floor. Flames burst upward, filling the room with blinding light. The hunters recoiled for a moment, shielding their eyes. Seizing the chance, the man pulled the girl and Max toward the back door. "Run!" he shouted. They stumbled into the night, racing across the yard. Behind them, the fire spread inside the house, smoke pouring out of the windows. The hunters followed, their glowing eyes cutting through the darkness. The man held the girl's hand tightly as they ran. Her legs were weak, but she kept moving, her small voice whispering, "Don't leave me, please." "Never," he said, his grip unbreakable. They reached the edge of the woods. The humming sound grew louder, chasing them. The hunters were not giving up. The man turned to face the dark forest. His lungs burned, his body ached, but his mind was clear. This was his choice, his fight. He lifted the rifle again, his voice low but strong. "If you want her, you'll have to go through me." The girl clung to his side, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and hope. For the first time, she truly believed his words. The man had made his choice, not the easy one, not the safe one, the father's choice, and he would not surrender her. Not tonight, not ever. The cold air of the forest cut against their skin as the man, the girl, and Max stumbled deeper among the trees. Behind them, the orange glow of the burning house lit the night sky. The place he once called home was gone, but he didn't look back. The girl's breathing was uneven, her small feet struggling to keep up. Max barked sharply, warning them that danger still followed. The strange humming sound grew louder. The hunters were coming fast. The man stopped near a cluster of rocks. He pushed the girl gently behind him and raised his rifle again. His eyes scanned the trees. "They're close," he whispered. The girl's glowing marks pulsed brighter, almost as if her body could sense their exact location. Her voice was shaky. "4? I feel 4. The man's jaw tightened. He had one rifle, one knife, and a loyal dog. But in his heart he carried something stronger, his promise to protect her. A sudden flash of red light cut through the trees. A beam struck the rock near his head, sending shards flying. He ducked and fired back. The gun cracked loud in the forest. One shadow fell, but 3 more moved in. They emerged slowly from the darkness, tall figures in dark armor, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Their weapons buzzed with deadly energy. One of them stepped forward, voice metallic and cold. "You cannot win, human. The child belongs to us." The man stood firm, his voice low and steady. "She's not yours. She's mine." The girl clutched his arm. "Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. The lead hunter tilted its head, almost mocking. "You think you can stop us with sticks and fire? We are stronger, faster, you will die." The man raised his rifle slowly. "Maybe, but not before I take you with me." The standoff broke in an instant. One hunter leapt forward, blade glowing red. The man fired, the shot hitting its chest and throwing it back. Max lunged at another, biting and pulling it down. Sparks flew as his teeth clashed with the creature's armor. The third hunter swung its weapon at the man. He dodged, the blade slicing into a tree. With quick reflex, he drove his hunting knife into the creature's arm. Black liquid hissed from the wound, and the hunter shrieked in rage. The girl screamed, covering her ears. Her glowing marks flared so bright they lit the trees like lightning. The hunters hissed, stepping back for a moment as if the light burned them. The man glanced at her, shocked. "What's happening to you?" She shook her head, terrified. "I don't know, but they fear it." Another beam of red light shot past, grazing the man's shoulder. He stumbled, pain flaring, but he stayed on his feet. His eyes blazed with fury. "Run!" he shouted at the girl, but she didn't move. "No, I won't leave you," she cried. Her voice cracked, full of desperation. The man knew then. She wasn't just a stranger anymore. She would rather die with him than be taken back. That truth gave him strength he didn't know he had. He grabbed a fallen branch, set it ablaze in the fire spreading from his burning home, and swung it at the nearest hunter. The flames roared, forcing the creature back. Max fought like a beast, tearing at the second hunter until it stumbled. The man drove his knife into its chest, finishing it. 2 were down. 2 remained, the leader hissed, stepping closer. "You fight well, human, but you will lose." The man tightened his grip on the rifle, blood dripping from his shoulder. "I don't care if I lose. I only care that she wins her freedom," the hunter charged. The man fired, the bullet piercing its head. The body crashed into the dirt, sparks crackling from its armor. Only one remained now. Tall, silent, its red eyes locked on the girl. The man stepped in front of her, raising his knife though his hands shook with exhaustion. "Over my dead body," he growled. The last hunter raised its weapon but then hesitated. The girl's glowing marks spread across her entire body, pulsing like waves of light. She stepped forward, her small voice steady for the first time. "I am not yours," she said. "I am not property, I am—" "His daughter." The hunter froze. The light from her marks grew so bright it forced the creature to shield its eyes. The man seized the chance and lunged forward, driving his knife into the gap in its armor. The hunter collapsed, lifeless. Silence fell. The forest was still. The man dropped to his knees, breathing heavily. Blood stained his sleeve, but he was alive. Max returned to his side, panting but unhurt. The girl rushed to him, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, you saved me." He placed a trembling hand on her cheek. "No," he whispered. "We saved each other." Above them, the night sky stretched endless and cold. The danger was gone for now, but the man knew more would come. The hunters would not give up so easily. Still, as he held the girl close, feeling her small arms wrap around him, one truth burned brighter than fear. He was no longer alone. He was no longer just a man. He was a father, and no force in the universe could take that away. The forest was silent again. Only the sound of the fire from the ruined house crackled in the distance. The man stood weakly, his body aching, blood soaking his sleeve. Max sat beside him, panting but proud. The girl clung tightly to his side, her small glowing hands trembling as if her body was still recovering from the light that had burst out of her. The hunters were gone. Their strange weapons lay broken in the dirt. Their glowing eyes no longer burned in the darkness. For the first time in many nights, the girl did not look afraid. She looked at the man with wide, tear-filled eyes. "You didn't leave me," she whispered softly. The man placed his rough hand on her head, brushing her tangled hair gently. "I told you." "I never would." Her lips trembled. "Everyone else left. Everyone else gave me away, but you stayed." Those words hit him harder than any wound. He remembered his own past, the loneliness of his empty home, the silence of nights when he had no one to speak to. He had thought he was broken beyond repair. But here she was, this fragile, strange child, filling the cracks of his heart with something he thought was gone forever. Love. Max nudged the girl with his nose, wagging his tail. She bent down and hugged him, laughing softly through her tears. It was the first time the man had heard her laugh. A sound so pure, so childlike, it melted the heavy night, but the man's eyes drifted to the horizon. He knew the fight was not over. If 4 hunters had come, more might follow. This girl was not safe simply because they had won tonight. The girl seemed to sense his worry. She tugged his hand. "Don't send me away," she pleaded, her voice fragile. He knelt in front of her, his eyes level with hers. "Listen," he said firmly. "I will never send you away. Do you hear me? Never. You are not property. You are not alone anymore. You are mine." Her glowing eyes widened. "Yours?" "Yes," he whispered. "My daughter." Her small mouth opened in surprise, then curved into a trembling smile. She threw her arms around his neck and buried her face into his shoulder. "Dad," she whispered again, but this time with joy, not fear. The man's eyes burned, but he did not fight the tears. He held her tight, as if letting go would mean losing her forever. The forest around them felt less dark now. The night air was still cold, but inside him burned a new fire. He had found something stronger than fear, stronger than loneliness. He had found family again. Hours passed before dawn began to break. The first rays of sunlight touched the horizon. The girl sat on a rock, wrapped in his coat, watching the rising sun with sleepy eyes. Max lay beside her, snoring softly. The man stood nearby, watching them both. His home was gone, his quiet life shattered. But strangely, he did not feel loss. He felt purpose. The girl looked up at him, blinking. "Where will we go now?" He walked over, kneeling to meet her gaze. "Anywhere. As long as we're together, we'll make it." She nodded slowly. "Together," he offered his hand. She slipped her small fingers into his, holding tightly. For a moment, the 3 of them, man, girl, and dog, stood at the edge of the woods watching the new day rise. The shadows were behind them, the danger not yet over, but they faced it as one. The man spoke softly, almost to himself, but loud enough for her to hear. "I thought my life was over, but you gave me a new reason to live." The girl smiled, leaning against him. "And you gave me something I never had." "What's that?" he asked gently. "A family. The man's chest tightened. He looked at her glowing eyes, then at Max wagging his tail, and finally at the path ahead. He had no plan, no map, no safe place waiting, but he had something better. He had a daughter who trusted him, a loyal dog who would never leave, and a heart that had been given a second chance. The hunters might come again. The world might turn against them, but they would not face it alone. The man squeezed the girl's hand firmly. "Let's go," he said. She nodded, whispering with a small smile, "Yes, Dad." Together they stepped into the light of the new morning. Not man. Not alien. Not stranger family.